Olá, TUTAMÉIA está ao vivo, transmitindo diretamente dos nossos estúdios domésticos, com a Eleonora.
Rodolfo.
E hoje a gente vai apresentar uma reportagem que acabamos de fazer, uma entrevista com uma jornalista palestina que está no Brasil, participando de um seminário exatamente sobre racismo, colonialismo e a situação da resistência palestina, um seminário que acontece na USP. E foi lá, na cidade universitária, que nós encontramos a nossa entrevistada, a nossa convidada, que a Eleonora apresenta para vocês agora.
Boa noite, pessoal. Shahd Safi é jornalista, defensora dos direitos humanos, nasceu em Gaza e estava lá quando do início do genocídio israelense promovido contra a população de Gaza. É professora, tradutora do árabe do inglês, jornalista, coordenadora de mídias sociais. Atua em diversos sites e conversou conosco hoje na cidade universitária, como o Rodolfo disse, sobre jornalismo, sobre o massacre israelense, sobre o que é viver em Gaza, o que foi feito, o que ela fez logo quando do início do ataque israelense e avaliações sobre a situação em Gaza e na Palestina.
A família dela está dividida, né? Uma parte conseguiu sair, outra parte está no Cairo, ela está em Nova York, onde estuda e faz essas ações, e outra parte permanece na faixa de Gaza. Antes ainda de eu apresentar o vídeo que fizemos, deixa eu só lembrar a todos as dimensões do que está acontecendo na faixa de Gaza. Eu tenho agora aqui, e vou ler para vocês um pouquinho das estatísticas dos números divulgados hoje pelo Ministério da Saúde da Palestina, com, enfim, os números do genocídio. Desculpa, né? Um instante que estava tudo aqui preparado e já não está, mas 2 minutos a gente já pega aqui, menos 2 minutos.
Então, essa entrevista, como o Rodolfo disse, a gente fez agora, são 19 horas, né, do dia 27 de novembro de 2024, a gente fez essa entrevista 2 horas atrás, na FFLCH, onde ela participa amanhã de uma palestra dentro do seminário internacional Racismo, Colonialismo e Genocídio na Palestina, que é a primeiro evento, digamos, produzido, né, idealizado pelo Centro de Estudos Palestinos na USP, que tem o objetivo justamente de debater a questão palestina e seu contexto para o mundo.
Olha, a gente transmitiu não, a gente gravou e já colocou no ar a sessão de abertura desse evento que foi realizado ontem. Mas vamos aos números, né? Como eu disse, divulgados pelo Ministério da Saúde da Palestina, informa que o número total de pessoas assassinadas por Israel desde 7 de outubro chega a 44.282. Destes, com dados completos, há 13.319 crianças, 7.216 mulheres e 3.447 idosos. Portanto, como você percebeu, mais da metade dos mortos, dos assassinados, são mulheres, idosos e crianças. Esse total que eu citei não inclui o número de pessoas, as pessoas desaparecidas. A estimativa hoje do número de desaparecidos chega a 10 mil pessoas. ainda 104.900 palestinos que sofreram algum tipo de ferimento, por atingidos por tiros, por prédios desabados, enfim. E muitos deles ainda sofrem de trauma severo e um grupo ainda está em condições, enfim, está com a vida ainda ameaçada. Bom, com esses dados aí, tendo esses dados como guia, então agora a entrevista que fizemos, como eu disse, agora à tarde, com a Shahd Safi.
Very nice to have you here, Shahd. It's an honor to have you here in TUTAMÉIA. I want to ask you in the beginning, how was your life before the genocide started last year?
Okay, so 2 months before the genocide, I actually was in Spain, because in 2023 it was my first time ever traveling. So I went to Spain, and I was really surprised because usually this is not how it goes. Getting a permit from Israel to travel is really very hard. So in the Gaza Strip, which is the widest open area prison in the world, in order to be able to travel, you have to get the Israeli permit. You know, they have to allow you to travel. So Palestinians in the Gaza Strip are only allowed to travel in specific certain conditions that are two. First, if they get scholarships, which is educational. Second, if they need urgent evacuation, medical evacuation. So it's either for educational purposes or medical purposes. Is that the case in reality? No. They claim that this is the norm, but in fact they have rejected so many permits of Palestinians who needed medical evacuations, and they died as a result because of this. And some Palestinians, they delayed their permits, so their health deteriorated. So it's not that they lost their lives, but their health deteriorated. In too many cases, they lost limbs. So I was among the lucky ones, the few lucky ones, who were allowed to travel before the genocide on the 27th of January. I traveled and went to Spain. And, I spent there almost like 7 months. I went back to Gaza on the 1st of August. So the reason that I got this scholarship is not something easy. I have done a lot to be able to get this scholarship. This takes us to how life was in the Gaza Strip. So Palestinians in Gaza, especially youth, are of a very, very good spirit, In what way? We have sought workaholism and studying in order to cope with an unbearable situation. Unbearable situation, what I mean by that is that, limited traveling experiences, limited so many restrictions on Palestinians in Gaza. For example, since 2007, no foreigners are allowed in the Gaza Strip except for very, 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 very few for specific circumstances. And it's like mostly humanitarian issues that some people get allowed in the Gaza Strip. But the vast majority of Palestinians in Gaza have never met a foreigner. They only saw foreigners in the news or on TV, or on social media, but not in real life, So it's not only about that. Gaza is restricted in many ways. For example, trade in the Gaza Strip is very restricted because Israel does not allow goods to be easily, accessing Gaza. What does that mean? They only allow some specific products that are actually Israeli mostly, so they benefit their own market, while in fact not allowing Palestinians in the Gaza Strip to experience any kind of independent trade or independent, economy. They made the economy in Gaza very, very, very fragile. How? By, there is no tourism in Gaza. There is barely trade in the Gaza Strip. It's very restricted. The health situation in Gaza is extremely bad. There is so many medical shortages. People die because of like the fragile equipment that Palestinians have. The very old fragile equipment, it's barely that they allow a necessary medical, things or products to get into the Gaza Strip. So that's the health system. And the jobs that Palestinians in Gaza were maintaining, like fishing, even the sea was limited. How? There was like a limited area in the sea that they're allowing Palestinian fishermen to fish in. But if any Palestinian fisherman dares to get close to the area where like they consider the border, of which Israeli soldiers are 24/7 alert, they will shoot them, just if they get close. The result will be shooting them. So also like the limited fishing area and the risk of this job made Palestinians, not encouraged to become fishermen. There are Palestinian fishermen because the situation is too bad that they become that, even though it's risky. But at the same time, some would like try not to do it because of the dangers. So that means that fishing is limited, tourism is not even allowed, trade limited, travel restricted. We tried to build up airports 2 times, and these, airports were bombed. In 2002, the second attempt of Palestinians to build up an airport and experience independence was, destroyed, was unfortunately bombed by Israel and destroyed. So that all left Palestinians in a very strong, like extreme psychological shock, not shock actually, but toll. I would say toll. It's too heavy for Palestinians in the Gaza Strip that they barely can manage to cope with the situation. Yet Palestinians did cope in the Gaza Strip, and that is not to romanticize Palestinians or say that we are heroes. It's not the case, and we don't want the world to view us this way, because this allows Israel to violate our rights, and then oh my God, they can cope. They are heroes. We're not. There is, before October 7th, the rate of commit suicide in Gaza was too high. So it's true that we're trying our best to manage through this imposed situation on us, but we are humans and we get weak and we get strong. And some of us, are smart enough to be able to manage. Some are not. Some are wise. Some can't grasp what's going on. It's just like we are diverse in our identities. The way that any country is, the way that any area is. Gaza is not a country, it's part of Palestine, but we have been made to be our own bubble and separated from other areas, other Palestinian territories, from Israel, from Egypt, from all of the surroundings that we are, surrounded by. So, yet, Palestinians in the Gaza Strip achieved one of the highest literacy rates in the world, 97%. And unfortunately, they didn't even get the recognition. If you look up highest rates of literacy in the world, many countries would show up, but not Palestine. But if you looked up what's the highest rate in Palestine, it shows up, 97%. Why isn't it recognized? That's the least you can do for such people who have been going through extreme oppression, yet are nailing it by, they're resisting. The form of resistance of most Palestinians in the Gaza Strip is literally by trying to work on themselves and maintain good sense of community, even though we used to work a lot as youth. I know many youth, and my own experience, and not being accredited at all. And by a lot, I mean it. Here, it's a bit weird to say someone works 24/7, but in Gaza, it's possible. And you barely get accredited. And sometimes they consider it voluntary and they don't even accredit you for that, by international organizations. So we experience different forms of abuse, financially, the occupation itself. But the purpose was to manage and was for our community. It was for Gaza, for a healthy Gaza that we were trying to, work, study, and develop, to the extent that there were good things in Gaza. There was a life in Gaza, even though, according to some reports, they were thinking that in 2020, and it was said to international reports, that Gaza will be unlivable in 2020. Yet, in 2020, the world became unlivable because of COVID-19, and Gaza was the last one to get the COVID-19 because of the fact that they are separated from the world. In the long run, they got it because Israel allowed it to get into the Gaza Strip, actually. They infected some people who got into Gaza, and then it was in, but we could control it. My point is, Gaza in 2020 was able to live. even though it was meant not to live. So because they knew that it's livable no matter what, they are killing it.
Before you continue and to talk about the October 7th, I'd like you to tell us a bit about your own experience before. As I understand, you were in Gaza, you were a child in 2014, and the previous
Yes.
war. Were you living in the city of Gaza at the time, and what is like for a child, to have bombing all around?
Yes, the first escalation, the first Israeli attack on the Gaza Strip that I've experienced was in 2008 or like 2007. I was 7, 8 years. And I remember vividly warplanes in the sky, the hovering, the intense noises that come with the planes over your head. I remember how it was so easy to see, the killing of your own people, to see how it's very easy to kill Palestinians, regardless of their age, regardless of their backgrounds, regardless of what they mean to you or to their families. You see them dying, not dying, being killed. I've seen mothers being killed. I've seen, fathers being killed. I've seen children being killed. I've seen anyone, literally, and I lived the threat of being killed. I had the fear all the time in Gaza that I can be killed, So, and it's really like something that I'm sure that I can experience, see to what extent that is. And the warplanes scene is not only during the times of escalations, it's always in there. But during the escalations, it raises the risk of being killed, so it's more intense experience to handle. So I also lived 2012. I also lived 2014. 2014, before this current genocide, it was the longest period and the most intense escalation Israeli attack on us in 2014. And and in 2021, it was also like there was an escalation. And plus, it's not only about the long escalations. Gaza was very the bombing in Gaza was very inconsistent. For example, they might bomb us for one day and nobody in the entire globe will know about it because it's like just one day and then it's gone, and it happened a lot, but it was like literally, very inconsistent. And that's what left Palestinians in Gaza always in alert. We never know when an escalation happens. We never know when a bombing happens. We lived in uncertainty for quite a long time. We still live in uncertainty. And, psychologically speaking, it's so harsh. It's not only about the escalations. Electricity in Gaza only comes for a few hours. Once during the day, a day during the day and another during the night. Few hours. Most of the day is 8 hours, and I still remember it was from 2 to 10, 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. Then when it comes to in the night, it's from 10 to 2, and things like that, they were on the individual level controlling our lives to the extent that we needed to structure our life around the circumstances. For example, I remember that my study schedule was according to electricity schedule. My mother's house chores schedule went according to the electricity schedule. Also, water in Gaza was very unhealthy. It still is very unhealthy now. It's not even accessible. Because, what I'm saying about before October 7th is not comparable at all in any way to what's happening now. So water was very, very unhealthy, and it did cause Palestinians diseases. And there are documentations of how Israel systematically was trying to ruin the water so that they destroyed the Palestinian, the field of health, the health situation of Palestinians. So, electricity, water, and all these restrictions that I mentioned on the medical and, travel evacuations. And the other phase is literally we had struggles in every little detail in our lives, every little detail.
And what about October 7th? Where were you? When did you notice that a new thing was starting in this, a new type of attack was beginning?
Okay, so October 7th, I remember it like very well. I woke up at, I think, yeah, it was in the morning. It was very early in the morning. And I remember that day, I was so excited about a celebration we were having at university because we were selected to compete in an international competition, which is like had the prize. And we were trying to, to prepare ourselves and like create that sense of happiness and, joy in Gaza. Because that's how we used to, this is the rhythm of Gaza. It's all fucked up and, sad. Still, you do whatsoever you can to be happy, And I dreamed about that. I was literally dreaming that that day is gonna be a happy day, but it was not. I woke up and I heard all of these voices and noise and like the rockets, and I was like, what's going on? And I thought that we are being bombed. Because this is how it usually goes. Palestinians being bombed. I didn't at all expect that Hamas broke through the fence around Gaza. I had no idea that Hamas is what's doing, that these voices are because of Hamas. Because to me, the voices of bombing and destruction and all of that, it's always coming from Israel. I remember I ran into the corridor and I've seen my family and how confused and scared they are. And there was no electricity, so we couldn't know what was happening. And, rumors started to spread among Palestinians in Gaza. And like people said different things, and none of them were actually true because none of us expected what's going on. Everyone thought something different, and none of them true. And it's funny because it's not funny, it's sad, because all of what they thought is happening is like Israel killed someone, or Israel killed an important person in Hamas, a leader, or like Israel killed someone who's important in Cairo, something like that, It was not at all that Hamas did anything. Then electricity comes and we get the internet connection, and here we go. And it was really, the feeling was very hard to tell, but I would honestly say there was a sense of, happiness, but extreme anxiety. To explain it, Palestinians were happy because it's the first time that they could express the anger that comes because of the layers of oppression that they have been going through from like 1948 and before up until this moment, up until October 7th, and unfortunately up until now. For example, my roots, my family, we don't belong to Gaza. Now I belong to Gaza because I was born in Gaza, but before I was born in Gaza, we had nothing to do with the Gaza Strip before my family members got displaced to the Gaza Strip. My paternal family, where my father's family were kicked out in 1948 from Castina, my father's father, and my father's mother is from Jaffa. They both were kicked out to the Gaza Strip. And in 1967, my mother's family were kicked out from the Naqab area, Bir al-Sabah, to Cairo, and they went back after they established the state of Palestine, and after Oslo Accords in 1993, they went back to the Gaza Strip. That's where my parents met at Al Nasser Hospital because they both are nurses. That actually was bombed and totally destroyed. And that's how I came to be born in the Gaza Strip with all of my other siblings, my full siblings. And, reflecting back on what I said, I grew up in this prison. And this is how I feel belonging to Gaza. But I also feel the belonging to Castina and to the Bedouin areas, and also to Jaffa, of course. And the identity crisis that Palestinians, every Palestinian experience an identity crisis. And it's because we are being stripped from who we are, Like the fight is not only against the land, it's against our identity. They are erasing who we are. And that's why there was a sense of happiness, but there was also definitely a sense of sadness and extreme anxiety, because we know that Israel is very powerful, is very strong, and they will react, and we know how cruel they are already. So we're expecting extreme cruelty, so we're so scared and sad because they have led us into such a situation. It's sad in whatsoever scenario. It's sad, it's sad when somebody loses their life. And, again, the vast majority of Palestinians did not choose violence as a form of resistance. Some did, of course. Some Palestinians prefer armed resistance and think is like the best way of revolution. Other Palestinians think that there are other ways and other forms. So there is not only one way of how a Palestinian can resist. So many Palestinians feel sad, yes. Many Palestinians felt happy, yes. And I explained why. You know, nobody wants bloodshed, nobody wants terror, but nobody wants to be scared. Nobody wants anyone else to be scared, you know. No healthy person want to, but unfortunately some unhealthy people want that, you know, and we see it. We're seeing it up until now. It's a year of killing children, of killing women and men, and actually like the vast majority of people who are being killed are people who have nothing to do with what Hamas has done or the forms of you know, resistance that they've you know, decided to take.
What did you do at the moment you realize what's happening? It's really happening. What's the reaction of your family and friends at that moment when you know what's really happening?
Yeah, it's like any Palestinians. It was like extreme anxiety. We were so scared.
Yes, but what did you do? What did you do? You come to
Oh,
stay
yes,
at home?
okay.
We go to
Yeah.
gather somewhere. What did you do?
We are so accustomed to bombing that we stayed in our house because we still do not know what would happen. Because Israel took a few hours before they respond, and then when they responded, you know, we were so scared. But what to do? This is how it goes in Gaza. You get so scared and you just live your life, you know. And then we just a very normal day. We're hearing the bombing. We're hearing the ambulances' voices. We are scared. We're freaking out. Everyone is hiding. That they are so freaked out because this is like, we can't show other people that we are, because first of all, because of the situation, Palestinians consider this to be weakness, so we don't like to show it, you know. Second, it makes the situation worse, so everybody tries their best to handle their, you know, emotions and like, you know, try not to unsettle the unsettled situation, you know. So, you know, 3 days after, it was the first displacement during the genocide, because it was 11 p.m. I was heading to sleep, you know, and you know, just family gathering, and my mother she put on her hijab, she was, you know, wearing her clothes, and she told us that she feels something would happen, you know, she's alert. And I was like, I don't think anything will happen to us today. I don't know why I got that feeling, but I was like, I don't think that, it's just, you know, I don't feel that there's anything that is gonna happen. And I didn't really care about, you know, how I was, how I looked like or what I was putting on. And then I went to sleep, and just on my way back, suddenly, like, we hear neighbors and like screaming and yelling, and we don't know what's happening, and knocking on the doors. And then they knocked the door and they told us that my brother went to see what's going on, and they told him that they want to bomb the area, they want to bomb our building, so you have to leave now, you know. So, you know, we rushed. My mother rushed, and everyone rushed to like to try to, you know, put whatsoever clothes and like leave and take the important stuff. And because we are accustomed, we developed this habit of which we have like our bags, and it's funny because it looks like a travel bag, but in fact it's like
every day.
A life bag.
it's a life bag. It's like it's a painful bag because you're preparing it because you know that you can be evacuated at any moment. So it has the official documents, it has like, you know, our IDs, photographs, our certificates. And we did that all during all the previous escalations, because we always had the thought that if anything happens, we have what tells the people who find us who we are, you know, if we were to be killed. And it's a serious thing in Gaza. This is how it goes. We prepare ourselves to be, you know, known when we die. That's why some people write on their, you know, yes, on their bodies. Even when I was a child, I did have this bag. My family always like, you know, makes us to prepare this this bag, and it's a common thing. It's not only about my family only. So I remember that I forgot it that day. So it was prepared. Everyone took theirs, but I forgot mine. And then we went to a nearby place, and after like, they didn't bomb our building, even though they unsettled the entire neighborhood. and they were saying that, you know, the warnings were like they want to bomb the area, but it turned out that they only wanted one building, and the person who they warned and told him to make everybody evacuate, he was the owner of the building that they bombed. So they were psychologically like messing with him, you know. It's like, and us and everybody, you know. And this is a familiar thing to us. They do it even, you know, during previous escalations. They psychologically enjoy torturing us. That's why we say it's like literally like a horror movie, you know. So and that day my mother was like, after the bombing finished, she said that she does not feel good about going back to our house. So she decided to go back to her parents' house, which is empty because they died in COVID-19 period. So she took us and we went there. So it's like the first story is empty, but the other stories are for my uncles. They live there. So we lived in the empty story. And only a few days after, I forgot the date. I used to recall it, but I forgot it. Only a few days after, it was 9 a.m. in the morning, and I was cleaning. I was doing some house chores, and then out of sudden, the building shook intensely. And you know, when it shakes, some things break, and you think you're bombed or you're being bombed or whatsoever. And I thought that it's done, that we're bombed, you know. And then I remember that I was unable to decide how to escape when I started to hear the bombing. Like it was shaking the building, and I've seen my family members running and like rushing out of the building, but I'm unable to decide. I was like very hesitant to take any decision, because I was like, to make any decision, I didn't want to make any decision that I would regret. I didn't want to contribute to anything that would make me feel guilty if I survived injured, or if I was like, okay, I'm here, the bombing happened, I'm going for where I am, you know? And then I also, in such situations, I don't tell anybody what to do. Because one of my biggest fears is if somebody dies, gets killed by Israel, I have any kind of guilt for any sort of contribution into that. So I don't decide in such situations. So that day, you know, we know that nowhere is safe, even though these two neighborhoods are actually in Rafah. Rafah is the southern areas. This was happening in a time where Israel was saying Rafah is the safe zone. It was never the safe zone, you know? And then after, like, you know, the bombing finished, because I remember my uncle came and he said that they bombed what they wanted to bomb. Now it's fine, and like, you know, we don't need to evacuate, because how it goes is, again, a horror movie. When there is a nearby bombing, we evacuate, then we go back to the place that we think is the safest, even though we know it's not the safest, but like we try, you know, this is how it goes. This is how we're coping. We try, every time there is a close pumping, we run, then we go back, because other areas also like gets pumping, so we go back to the other area. Then, yes, it's very tiring. It's very psychologically and physically tiring. So my mother was like, if I'm gonna die, I will die in my grandparents' house. Sorry, in her parents' house, like my grandparents. And we stayed in there, you know, most of the time. There were times where we escaped and went back and escaped, because they also have what's called fake warnings, which is a strategy they follow to also unsettle Palestinians psychologically. And everyone in Gaza got that warning. I mean it, everyone. I got it, everyone got it. It's like they tell you that you have to leave because there is bombing, that they're gonna bomb, and you know, you have to go to whatsoever area, and you go and nothing happens. You know, so they use this, and to the extent that we don't even know when they call us if they are being honest or if they're lying, you know. So we always escape, even if it's a lie. Like one of the methods that we were told that can tell you if they're lying or not is, if you got a call, try to ask the person on the call any question. If it felt like a recording, you know, if they didn't like any, you know, silly question, try to make anything that will, you know, that will make them respond. So if they didn't respond, it means it's a recording. And even though we knew this, we always believed the recording, you know? Yes, okay. Yes. So the most intense day for me during the genocide was the 12th of February. We were at our grandparents' house, and it was 3 a.m. in the morning, and it's when I decided that I'm no longer staying in Gaza, because I have been writing on our experiences as Palestinians before the genocide, and during the genocide mostly, and it was a threat to me because many of my dear friends were killed during the genocide who were not like, they were not even professional journalists, they were just writers, you know, and they were killed. So I saw to what extent Israel fears the word of truth, that they killed my friends who just shared their own personal narratives, their own experiences of living in Gaza. Mahmoud al-Naouk has been killed, Yusuf Dawas, like the number Abdullah Hammo, it's like, I can't, Muhammad al-Hubbi, really like so many people, Nadia Abdul Latif, like Wafa al-Adaini, it's so, I can't, like the number is crazy, you know, I can't manage to, some of them I could cry when I heard the news, many of them I could not, because I became so numb. And I don't think numb is a fair word to say how a Palestinian now is feeling, especially those who survive. It's way harder for those in Gaza. But for us, we are detached. We're detached from Gaza in a way, but still connected. So it's like the feeling is we're unsettled, but we're trying to manage by ignoring our feelings, by living this form of the, you know, of like denying what's happening, even though we are aware. You know?
But to write, excuse me, but to write, you have to hear to your feelings.
Sorry?
To write.
Yes,
you,
writing.
You have to put your feelings on the writing, and
exactly. That's why I started writing before the genocide, because you know we had a lot of pain and we needed to express as Palestinians. And during the genocide, to me, writing was making me feel less guilty. And up until now, it is, well, I'm honestly very privileged to have the opportunity to be able to travel, escape, and heal. And I wouldn't say that I'm really truly healing, but I am going through a process of recovery where Palestinians are still getting new layers of trauma every day. So on the 12th of February, it was when like 4 Israeli hostages were released, you know, in Rafah, that was only 1 or 2 blocks away from where I live, you know, my grandparents' house. So when that happened, it was so intense in Rafah. It was like for like a couple of hours. It was consistent bombing, and I thought that they're doing to Rafah what they're doing in Gaza. It was in a time where Netanyahu threatened that they will evacuate Rafah and they will get into Rafah, you know, in the ground. And to me, this literally translates in my head into killing me, because I've got journalistic experience. I was like, they've killed many of my friends. Okay, if they see me, they either kill me or they do what they did to other women, you know, to other Palestinian women. They've done a lot of like, you know, violations to Palestinian men and Palestinian children, and I was expecting anything from them. I don't trust them. The experiences of my grandparents and like Palestinians' grandparents that I've been hearing, so intense, things that are crazy, and I literally do not expect morals from them. So at that time, we launched, there was a GoFundMe campaign that we launched, which was like helping my family to get income when we were in Gaza, because we were unable to like get any source of income because we all lost our jobs. So we changed on the 12th of February the story from helping my family to push it through, because we did not want to leave Gaza, but when we decided on the 12th of February to leave, we changed it into helping my family evacuate. And you know, why do Palestinians leave the GoFundMe campaigns and like other crowdfunding campaigns? It's because, you know, Egyptian officials and also Yahala company makes Palestinians pay too much money. Unfortunately, we were betrayed by Egyptians, and we were financially abused by Egyptians. So Yahala company made me pay $26,000 and a half, you know, in February, and they've taken way more. Like during the beginning of the genocide, they were taking at least $10,000 or like $20,000 per person. When I evacuated at the time that my family could evacuate, they took $5,000. No, not five. I think $6,000 and a half per person. But they were saying that they're taking officially $5,000 per person, per adult person. which is a lie, they take more. And they said that they take like $2,500 per child. I know of a story, I heard of it, I did not see it in my own eyes, but I've heard of it. They made a woman who's pregnant to go back to Gaza because they said she did not pay for the fetus. Yes. And I believe my people because I've seen how cruel Egyptians are with us. I've seen it.
And how do you do the work of your reports? How do you manage to be a journalist in this horrible situation? Some say journalists are targeted by Israeli military. We have these numbers of killings of journalists. There are no comparison in any period of history. How do you manage to work? And any time you believe yourself as a target to the military forces?
Yes. So the situation where I grew up, let's acknowledge that it's very easy to become a journalist. I'm a freelance journalist, okay? So other people have done, other Palestinians have done different forms of journalism. To me, it was freelance journalism. First of all, big part of it is responsibility and the interaction with reality. This is your reality. For example, if you're living a healthy life, I mean, like if you're just a normal person and you love social media, you go through social media and shoot a video of you doing whatsoever stuff you like, exercising, eating, cooking, reading, whatsoever you like. For us, the reality surrounding us is bombing. So when we go to our social media that we love, that's what we shoot because it's our life. So it's not that Palestinians have the choice. Many of us don't. For example, Mu'taz Azaiza, when he started his job, which is incredible, like shooting all of these videos in the Gaza Strip, he is showing what's his life like, He was turned into a journalist with like these videos that he published. But again, if we imagine another person shooting videos in another country that is safe, in the same age, with the same age that Mu'taz Azaiza is, it's like he wouldn't get that attention, but Mu'taz Azaiza would definitely get because it's intense, it's extreme, it's not normal, it's pumping, it's explosions, So somehow reality determines who you are more than who you determine who you are. So for us as Palestinians, we have never really had the experience of choosing what we want because we are colonized, we are occupied. The choices and options are made for us. But what Palestinians want is to make up the options that they have, Because this is the meaning of liberty, is to be able to decide and live your life the way that you want, And that's what Palestinians want, freedom, liberty, which is, a very basic right, fundamental right, So, responsibility, reality, the way that we manage, we don't manage, we just, it's like, it can be a way of coping with the situation, coping mechanism, but still it might make us feel less guilty, it might make us feel that we're doing for the community something, or for the narrative, or for the cause, but after all, we're not really managing because we are being killed, we're not really managing because many of us really go through intense psychological experiences, post-traumatic syndrome. Almost every Palestinian, actually every Palestinian, experience PTSD, and in fact, I've read recently that Palestinians are experiencing new layers of PTSD, actually new layers of ongoing PTSD. And I myself was diagnosed with PTSD, because it's like, the escalations that I have gone through, it's like very expected. And any human who would go through such experiences would definitely experience a psychological impact. So Palestinians are humans. They do whatsoever they can, and with all the tools that they have, which is for one of the tools that they have is, showing reality, but still it has its own consequences, The threat of being, if you're not killed, which is the extremist, you live with the threat to be killed. If you escape, you live with post-trauma, and it's kind of like everyone feels more privileged than the other, even though they're all in a very bad spectrum, in a very unhealthy, situation.
So about this question of targeting journalists, do you see why Israel does that? I mean, this is like a goal to much more than censor, prevent people both in Palestine and other places to know what's going on there.
Let's not forget that journalists, Palestinian journalists, are Palestinians, and Israel has a clear intention in ethnically cleansing Palestinians. We see this in Sheikh Jarrah, we've seen this in Al-Nakba, in Al-Naksa, and we have been seeing it up until this moment. So the first reason why they would kill journalists is the fact that they are Palestinians. The second, why journalists in specific, is because, you know, when you do something wrong and somebody says what you're doing or shows it, you kind of develop this sense of revenge and you try to hurt them, you know? So for Israel, journalism exposes the crimes, exposes what they are doing. And they don't want the world to know, so they basically kill journalists, you know? And to me, I believe not only in the case of Palestine, in whatsoever case, you know, when a journalist is being killed, something is being hidden. Something is meant to not be told to the world. It's not to be exposed. And it's not anything, it's something wrong. Something extremely wrong that it made the eyewitness, because journalists are definitely eyewitness. They're not only eyewitness, they're even able to show what they have to the world. So you want to hide your crime, you kill the people who show it, who expose you for who you are. They fear the narrative. They fear the Palestinian narrative. They know they are an occupation. They know Palestinians are oppressed. They know the narrative of Palestinians is very strong because it's the correct one. And they fear that the world know, because this might contribute to not allowing them to have, you know, control over the colonial project of, you know, taking over Palestine and even other areas in the region.
And do you feel the international media in Europe or in the States are doing a good job in showing what's happening in Palestine? Are they heeding what's happening there? Are they following deep state orders or Israel political orders?
The mainstream media has always been biased towards Israel because of the scale of what's happening in the Gaza Strip. Some mainstream media have given some light or like some contribution to a bit of the truth that is happening in Gaza. But unfortunately, the vast majority of mainstream media is biased and contributes to the Israeli narrative and actually supports the Israeli narrative. For example, they would show the struggle as a conflict or as a war, when in fact the struggle is not a conflict, it's not a war, it's clearly a story of an occupier and occupied, oppressor and oppressed. It's that simple. They do not approach it in that way. They do not start with 1948 or like 1967 or start even with the situation in the Gaza Strip before October 7th. They disregard all of the historical pain Palestinians have gone through and focus on October 7th, you know? They just think the war started. It's not that they think. I'm sure since they are journalists, they know all of this, you know, background. But because they are biased, they start with October 7th because they know how to manipulate the narrative, how to spread propaganda among people. They have been doing that for years. There is systematic way and approach of manipulating the narrative to make it seem as if Israel is necessary to exist in the way that it is, of which they kill Palestinians. They made it very dehumanized. They made Palestinians very dehumanized, that they can systematically kill them, and the world after a year, more than 400 days, is okay with Palestinian children being killed, Palestinian women, Palestinian, you know, even feminism itself is like, didn't even, you know, the feminist movement didn't say anything about what's going with Palestinian women in Gaza. They were harassed, they were raped, they were killed, they were like displaced, their human rights were violated. Nothing happened. The feminist movement did not even give any recognition, did not even do anything for them. You know, why? Because the narrative for years has been used to make it seem as if it's okay For example, when, like, let's say when an Israeli hostage gets killed, the world really gets angry. On October 7th, the world gets so angry. But all of the previous escalations, 2008, 2012, and I said it over and over again, and I will always will, 2014, 2016, or what's, sorry, not 16, 14, then 2021, then 2023, they all did not mean anything to the world. Palestinians were being killed. The bloodshed was was happening. Nobody cared. The world didn't care. October 7th happens, and suddenly all countries care. Oh, human rights is a big issue. How dare Palestinians, the barbaric people, do that? What? Well, when Israelis have done all of what they've done, you never really cared. But on October 7th, it's a thing for you. Now you care about the human rights. Why is it that you care when it's Israelis, but you don't when it's Palestinians? What's the difference? What's the difference? So showing us as a conflict or as a war is never of any good for the truth. It's not moral. And showing that there is symmetry between Palestinians and between Israelis, there is no symmetry. There has never been symmetry between an occupier and occupied in power, Yes, so there are a lot of ways in which they manipulate the narrative. Like they would say, they say now that like 40,000 Palestinians, at least 40,000 Palestinians died. We don't die, we get killed. We said it many times. And till now, mainstream media says Palestinian dies, but Israeli gets killed. And they even say by whom, by Hamas or, whatsoever. But Palestinians, they just die. We just, happened that big numbers of us die. And even saying 40,000 Palestinians, Gaza is very small. It's like 360 kilometers. It's smaller than New York, it's smaller than Washington, D.C., it's smaller than Sao Paulo. Gaza has 2 million people and a half. That's before the genocide. Logically speaking, if such an area gets bombed, how many people would die? Definitely a lot. There is a feature that was published by Mondo's, of which it said that at least 200,000 Palestinians were killed, that is, if not even more. It's not only that it's Gaza, this like 360 kilometers. People in Gaza are being displaced, so they get even more crowded into like smaller areas, then bombed. And what is the logical result of this? Really unbelievable numbers of people being killed, right? It's by sense, it's by logic, In the previous escalations, how many Israelis were killed? How many Palestinians were killed? It's always Palestinians are way more, in the number of like how many they're killed than Israelis, And it's not only about the killing and all of that, it's about the experience. Why is an Israeli given, most Israelis have dual citizenships, Palestinians are even considered stateless. So why is it that is killed that they have all of these layers of human rights and privileges, while Palestinians don't even have the right to exist, or the right to have a state? Or even, and this like, it reflects on us on a personal level. Like we experience the fact that we are not being, we don't have our country that we historically belong to it. And if they say that they have been here 2,000 years ago, who was there in these 2,000 years ago? Us. We have been there, and even before, because Palestinians is not only about the religion. We are not of one religion. We are national, country. We have Jewish Palestinians, we have Christian Palestinians, and we have Muslim Palestinians. And even Israelis themselves, before Israel gets declared as a state, did have the Palestinian citizenship in Palestine, And Jewish communities were living in peace with other Arab communities. What happened is that Israel, when it was declared as a country, practiced and imposed apartheid system on Palestinians. They separated Israelis to contact Palestinians. They fragmented Palestinians. There are Palestinians of the West Bank, Palestinians of Gaza, Palestinians of 1948, Palestinians of the diaspora, and Palestinians of Jerusalem. So even in the area, we're like 5 categories: Palestinians of Jerusalem, Gaza, West Bank, Palestinians of 1948, of which they stayed within Israel, and the diaspora. So see how fragmented we are. And each one of us is given a different identity color. That's literally something that happened in South Africa. That's clearly an apartheid system. Even Amnesty International, before October 7th, declared that Palestinians are experiencing apartheid system imposed by Israel. You know?
Despite the power of the United States and Israel in the mainstream media, we saw huge manifestation demonstrations in the United States and Europe. Do you think that Israel, despite all this power, is losing their hearts and minds in this war, the people in this war? As a journalist, and the whole of these Palestinian journalists in this situation, they are showing another situation that is changing the feeling of the genocide, the massacre.
So, okay, Israel has committed so many crimes that that they definitely are losing people and will be losing people, because that's what happens when you commit a crime, you know? What happens when you commit a crime is that there will be consequences, and people do not like any criminal, you know? So when you do a crime, this is a very expected result, you know? So is Israel losing their, reputation in the field of human rights? For sure, they have violated all human rights. They violated all human rights, clearly, you know? So do they have enough power to still be doing and continuing all that they are doing, the crimes that they are committing, and not being held accountable? Yes, they have the power to really run away with whatsoever they're doing, and that's what we're seeing. Like, they have violated the international law many times. Until now, they're not being held accountable. The ICG and the ICC, you know, and like the declarations that they've made, they contributed, like, you know, a bit, no legal implementations. They're just like words for now. Historically speaking, Palestinians think that like it might contribute to something in the long run, but at the moment, you know, we're very disappointed and betrayed that nothing is really happening. So I'm more concerned with how my people are feeling than I am concerned with the reputation of Israel. So I don't really care how the world view Israel, because it's not about Israel. Crimes are always hated. Nobody likes crimes. And when you do a crime, yes, people would definitely not like you. But I'm more concerned with how my people are feeling and what people should be doing for my people, for Palestinians. So protesting is a way, but there should be other things that they do for Palestinians. They, you know, never give up. And plus, like, Israel is so strong that they still have a lot of support from so many people, you know. The propaganda is extreme, that we still need to raise awareness and, you know, increase solidarity with Palestine. And, you know, there are many, as we say, pro-Palestinians, but the word pro-Palestinian, it's unfair, you know. Why is it unfair? Because it's not that you are an ally of Palestinians, that you are really supporting Palestinians. You are supporting human rights. You're actually pro-justice, pro-humanity when you are supporting and in solidarity with Palestinians. On the other hand, we see pro-Israelis who are okay with the violations of human rights regardless, and they say it clearly. We've seen it many times. They say, like, you know, they support Israel no matter what, regardless of whatever happens. And that's, like, you know, see the amount of a propaganda that to convince a person, or even like many people, that killing a child who has not even lived and showed you who he is or who she is or who they are is okay, you know. It's like all of the violations we've seen in Gaza, like the famine, the killing, the bloodshed of anybody, like, it's unfair. 2.5 million people, you know.
So, and what the world should do for Palestine?
The first thing that they should do is ceasefire. There should be no killing, you know, at all. The second thing that they should do is overcoming the roots of the issue. If really the world cares about Palestinians and Israelis, what they have to do is to break the cycle of violence. How do we break the cycle of violence? Is simply by approaching the roots. Why are they fighting? Okay, let's understand why Israelis and Palestinians fight. So, Palestinians want the right to return and they want to not experience apartheid system. Israelis want more and more land and want, or as they claim, that they want to be safe from anti-Semitism. That's how they first were, established as a result and consequence of Holocaust, which basically they are committing now against Palestinians because they victimized themselves and did the crime that happened to them, to Palestinians. And it's never an excuse for someone who's gone through oppression to practice oppression on other people, okay? So if we need to overcome the issue, we need to give Palestinians the right to return, and we need to give literally everybody in that area the same rights, the same privileges, same rights, same privileges, because there's no one in there is better than the other or is way more civilized or different than the other. So if you think so, then you are racist. If you think so, then you are definitely experiencing discrimination. You're practicing discrimination. So everyone in that area should be given the same privileges. And let's think about the world when Palestinians and Israelis have the same privileges. I don't know how it would look like. I can't, I don't have enough info or enough tools to even be able to imagine such a society, but I know this is morally the correct thing to happen, I know that this is ideally the thing that should happen, I know that naturally this is how it should goes, and I really hope that one day we see that happening, because all Palestinians are seeking for is being included in this world and given their own rights. I as Shahd, on a personal level, I have been born in this world as a rejected person, I experienced it in many ways. In the airports, in Gaza, during the escalations, it's like you are being consistently told that you're not wanted as a Palestinian. And if I am not Palestinian, who am I? I don't exist. So for us, we don't even have the options of having another choice. We don't even have the options of leaving Palestine. There were times where I was so weak that I wanted to leave Palestine, before October 7th, and many Palestinians as well. But we were not even given that option. We had been made to react in whatsoever way that someone can develop as a way of coping mechanism that they have, in this very intense experiences. But there is no option. If you're Palestinian, this is what you've got. You've got the cause, and all that you can do is contributing to the cause. And we can't give up. If we give up, even if we are physically there, if we are physically here, we're not there because our identity is erased. And that's the struggle of identity that Palestinians have been experiencing and have been trying to make the world understand.
And what are your projects, your personal project now? You're a journalist, you're a writer, what you plan to do now? Okay. You're apart from our family?
Yeah.
So...
I don't have a clear image of my future. I should work on that more, I should anticipate. But what I would say is that I'm trying to learn more and more, humanitarian tools, to try to help to contribute to the cause. I'm studying a joint major in human rights and written arts, so hopefully I will graduate. And as I don't really know what kind of job I will do, but what I know is that so far I have taught Arabic as a second language, I have taught English to Arabs, I have done some journalistic work. I trust myself enough that I have good capacities and I have good abilities that just as soon as I graduate, I will nail it wherever life takes me, because I've been through Gaza experience and I've survived. So I don't fear any other experiences anymore,
Mm-hmm. So we'd like to thank you very much for this interview, for talking to TUTAMÉIA. And before we say goodbye, we'd like to have your message to the people that are watching you now in TUTAMÉIA, your message to the Brazilian people.
Okay, so this is my first time in Latin America. This is my first time in Brazil, and you guys seem very, nice people. You remind me of Arabs. You look very similar to us in how we look, and you're very hospitable. You're very social. We are also the same way. You've gone through an experience of being oppressed and colonized, and you know how it feels to, to be on the weak side of the story. And what I want from Brazilians is to be able to understand us, to really try your best to raise awareness, read more about us, try to dig deeper when you hear any info about Palestinians, because there's the amount of propaganda is huge. So I want you to hear more about Palestinians from Palestinians. There are so many media outlets that are definitely very pro-Palestinian, or and by pro-Palestinian I say it again, pro-justice, or Palestinian themselves talking. For example, there is We Are Not Numbers, of which people share their own experiences. A young Gaza youth, and it started in 2014, right after one of the Israeli escalations before October 7th. And many stories are in there. There is Al Jazeera, there is Mondowiz, there is Al Qudra Intifada. There are platforms that are good enough to share the true story of Palestinians. And I trust that if you dig deeper and inform yourself and educate yourself more, you will understand. And it's not a complicated story. I believe that this interview is enough to show you that it's a story, like in the simplest way, in a nutshell. Occupied, you as Palestinians should understand it very easily. And and then what comes after is sympathizing, and it's not only sympathizing that we want from you guys, but also solidarity. And solidarity has too many forms, and I am sure you know how to show your solidarity to Palestinians. Boycotting the Israeli products is very necessary. Because unfortunately money talks, and one of the ways in which you can support Palestinians is by trying to not purchase these products, because each time you purchase some Israeli products, what happens is that the money goes to kill my people, to kill a child. So while drinking or eating something that is made by Israel, please reconsider the fact that the money you've paid is at the moment of you eating or drinking is being used to kill my people. So please do whatsoever you can, talk more, try whatsoever you can. I'm sure you know the way, and don't give up on us, because we did not give up on our story, on our narrative. We don't have an option. You do, and we want you to join us in this fight for liberation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.